Good morning. This is Northern Light for Monday, August 14th. I'm Monica Sandreski. Todd is away this week. A fugitive who had been missing for more than 3 weeks in St. Lawrence County was shot and killed by New York State Police. We've got more coming up. Also, summit stewards on Cascade Mountain in the Adirondacks counted 3 times as many hikers this spring than they did last spring.
We are seeing an increase in traffic to the high peaks. So I think management will be very important in the coming years.
We hear from the head of the Adirondack Mountain Club stewards just ahead. Also, anglers from throughout the country are making their way to the North Country. The editor of Bassmaster Magazine tells us about why the region is consistently one of the best fishing spots in the country. Also, a new mindfulness labyrinth has opened in the southern Adirondack town of Johnsburg.
If people were looking at it, it would be like a lot of circles, large ones and small ones together, but the path passes through every one of them. And it's often considered as a symbol of your journey in life. There are turns and twists in it.
We'll pay a visit just ahead. All of that and more is coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us. Support for Northern Light comes from the Village Mercantile Saranac Lake, partnering with local nonprofit organizations to sell their merchandise through their e-commerce store. More at villagemerc.com. And by Apothecary Chocolates, making gourmet chocolates by hand from all natural herbs, botanicals, and tree syrups. apothecarychocolates.com. This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski. A fugitive who had been missing for more than 3 weeks in St. Lawrence County was shot and killed by the New York State Police late last week. Sean Sheridan from Canton was sentenced to 12 years in prison for shooting his fiancée in the neck last summer. She survived but was paralyzed for months. Sheridan then skipped his sentencing hearing in mid-July, and the police had been searching for him ever since. Then last Thursday, a state trooper and his canine dog partner were searching for Sheridan along Donnerville Road in Russell. Officials say Sheridan was heavily armed and opened fire, striking the canine. The state trooper then shot and killed Sheridan. He was pronounced deceased at the scene. St. Lawrence County District Attorney Gary Pasqua blamed bail reform for why Sheridan was not behind bars at the time of his sentencing. Bail was set, but it was paid, which allowed Sheridan to be released. It's been a busy spring and early summer in the Adirondack High Peaks, especially on Cascade Mountain. That's one of the easiest 46ers to climb. Summit stewards on Cascade counted nearly 3 times as many hikers on that peak this May than they did during the same time last year. Our Adirondack reporter Emily Russell spoke with Liam Ebner from the Adirondack Mountain Club. He's the Summit Steward Coordinator and says a warmer, drier spring may be why it was the busiest spring for many, but not all of the high peaks since 2018.
So in May 2022, we saw averages for Marcy, Algonquin, Wright, and Cascade all right under 100 people per day per summit. This year in 2023, Cascade, the average was up to 171 versus 98 in 2022. And the Marcy average was down about 20 people per day for 2023 versus 2022. And that was due to, I think, because we still had some lingering snow up high in elevation in late May, which was causing some less than favorable trail conditions. And through education, we were encouraging people to stick to lower trails at the end of the spring, since the trails were still pretty vulnerable in those fragile areas. So we were directing people away from Marcy and towards other mountains that had better trail conditions and could handle the large number of hikers that we were seeing.
So I want to talk about Cascade. Looking at the numbers, Cascade, out of the 4 peaks, it sees about half of all the hiker traffic, it seems, in May and June. I wonder just what the strategy for a Summit Steward is on Cascade and what it's like just to be up there on a really busy Saturday in May or June.
Yeah, so Cascade is definitely one of the harder mountains to steward on really busy days. Cascade, it's not uncommon to have more than 300 people up there on any given day. And on days like that, it really is nonstop stewarding. We'll sometimes have to tailor our message a little bit and spend less time with each group just so we can try to get to everyone. But there are busy days where you'll spend the entire day talking to people pretty much nonstop and trying to get to everyone, especially since Cascade is a lot of first-time hikers here in the high peaks. It's a really valuable place for us to really get that education to people who might be visiting for their first time, for when they go on to taller peaks the next time that they're hiking here.
Okay, and part of that education, as you've mentioned, is the alpine vegetation. Talk about what data you guys have seen with that in relation to summit stewards, like what kind of impact stewards are having on alpine vegetation and what the education looks like.
Yeah, so the Summit Stewardship Program was created in 1989. So it's been around for over 30 years. And we have historical photos of what the summits looked like before we started having this backcountry education up on top of the summits. The summits did not look great. There was lots of damage. At that point, camping was still legal on summits, which has a huge impact. But since we've started stewarding the summits and educating hikers up there, we have seen a very large increase in the vegetation and the health of the summits for mountains that we regularly steward. And that can all be seen through our photo point monitoring research. So every 5 years, we retake historical photos dating back to the 1960s for damage on the mountains that are mostly caused by hiker trampling on the vegetation. And we have seen a pretty large recovery of most of those areas, which is really great to see.
From your on-the-ground experience with hikers, how does that make you feel about the present and the future of the Adirondack High Peaks?
I think that as many people as possible should be able to enjoy these mountains because they are a special place. They're extremely beautiful, and it's the only place in New York that we can see this kind of ecosystem. So I definitely want as many people as possible to be able to experience and enjoy the Adirondack High Peaks and the Alpine Zone. But we are seeing an increase in traffic to the high peaks. So I think management will be very important in the coming years. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what data is coming out of the visitor use management study that the DEC is working on this month to see how that will help us manage the increase in traffic that we're seeing.
That was Liam Ebner, the Summit Steward Coordinator for the Adirondack Mountain Club, speaking with our reporter, Emily Russell. Grants of up to $50,000 are now available to homeowners who are impacted by last month's flooding. 8 counties are eligible, including Essex and Clinton counties here in the North Country. Low and moderate income homeowners can use the money for, quote, urgent repairs necessary to bring their home into a safe and habitable condition. The state says the grants are not intended as a substitute for insurance. The Canton, Messina, and Ogdensburg Chambers of Commerce are in the process of merging. The 3 chambers have been exploring this option since 2018. The St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce Executive Director Ben Dixon says that by merging the individual members, they can share services more easily and make things more streamlined. The nearby Potsdam Chamber is not joining the merger. It's expected to take effect on September 1st after the county chamber votes on the merger at the end of the month. Dixon says in preparation, they're hiring new employees, community coordinators, and specialists in marketing and communications. You can get more news from around the region anytime at our website, ncpr.org, or follow the station on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's about 10 after 8. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski. Todd is away for a couple of weeks. He's on vacation, so it'll just be you and me really through the end of the month. But I'm looking forward to it. I think we'll have a good time. Stick around. On the show, the North Country is a national destination for bass fishermen. Ahead of the Bassmaster Elite Series in Plattsburgh and Clayton this month, we'll hear from the editor of Bassmaster Magazine about what makes the region so hot for bass fishing. The conversation coming up in just a couple of minutes right here on NCPR, which is supported by the Adirondack Experience, the museum on Blue Mountain Lake, presenting a full season of events and activities, now open 7 days a week. Tickets at the adkx.org. Support also comes from Seagull Festival in Schroon Lake, bringing opera and musical theater to the Adirondacks since 1915. More at seagullfestival.org. NCPR is the media sponsor for the Adirondack Plein Air Arts Festival, August 14th through the 19th. That's this week, presented by Saranac Lake Artworks. The public is invited to meet with artists and watch them paint at locations throughout Saranac Lake. The festival concludes with a show at the Harriet's Town Hall on Saturday, August 19th, featuring 40 painters presenting new work. For more information, visit ncpr.org/calendar. Over the last week or so, we've been featuring life and culture around upstate New York, thanks to our public radio colleagues around the state. A new mindfulness tourist attraction has opened in the southern Adirondacks. WAMC's Aaron Shello-Levine reports on the new Adirondack Labyrinth in Johnsburg.
After 2.5 years of planning and constructing, a new spiritual destination is ready for visitors, a labyrinth. If you're picturing one of the region's popular corn mazes or the final act of The Shining, think again. Concentric rings of dirt, lined with gravel and rock, create the monument's track. A fire pit filled with sage burns nearby, and a pond and the surrounding acres of woods add to the meditative ambiance. Legacy Labyrinths has built and maintained walkable labyrinths in the U.S., Canada, France, and Argentina. Its newest maze was dedicated on a rainy July morning, but that wasn't enough to keep away so-called labyrinth pilgrims.
This is kind of a day in Ireland that we would call a soft day. Or if you meet someone in the street, you would nod at them and say, soft day, thank God.
Tony Christie is an Irish writer, spiritual teacher, and labyrinth consultant on hand for a ribbon cutting in Johnsburg. It's a fair bit of excitement for a location aimed at giving visitors access to some peace and quiet. Christie played a vital role in the design of Legacy Labyrinth's 7th Mindfulness Maze, although he had not been able to oversee the construction due to the COVID pandemic.
So what we have here is called a replica of the Chartres Labyrinth. Chartres is a town in France. There's a Gothic cathedral there, and there was in the cathedral, on the floor of the cathedral, there's a labyrinth built in 1201, 40 foot in diameter, one of the biggest symbols in the cathedral, and it's a winding path, one path from the outside to the centre. So it's people were looking at it, it would be like a lot of circles, large ones and small ones together, but the path passes through every one of them. So, and it's often considered as a symbol of your journey in life. There are turns and twists in it.
But there's more to the labyrinth than meets the eye. While it may seem like some rock and dirt to some, Christie emphasized what he calls the sacred geometry in the labyrinth's design.
Sacred geometry is the bringing in of proportions from nature, like people would be familiar with the pine cone or the pattern of seeds in a sunflower, in the center of a sunflower, but even the way branches grow from the trunk of a tree or leaves form. So there's a whole study of bringing these divine proportions into man-made structures.
It all comes down to math. Much of the sacred geometry of this labyrinth revolves around the numbers 3 and 4. In this labyrinth, the center circle is 1/4 the diameter of the entire maze. A flower statue in the middle of the labyrinth has petals that are 1/3 the diameter of the center circle. There are 28 turns. 3 plus 4 is 7, times 4 is 28. And on the perimeter of the labyrinth ring itself, there are 112 half-moons, 28 times 4. Christine Powers is the founder and CEO of ASA Adirondack.
We have brought in 250,000 pounds of stone. So imagine I would be in my office and I'd hear rumbling, like everything shaking, and it would be truck after truck after truck dropping stones. 120 yards of topsoil, a mile of hand-molded landscape edging. We have had concrete poured in the middle. I mean, it's just an astonishing amount. 3,200 hours of volunteers. From 14 states and 3 countries, we've had over 50 volunteers.
Legacy Labyrinth Project Executive Director Christine Katzenmeyer says it took collective effort to get the labyrinth built.
With a labyrinth, you're putting your heart and soul in it. I mean, when you're putting your hands in the dirt and you're moving rocks, every fiber of you. And if you are, like Christine said, very aligned and in tune with the energy of that, then your labyrinth just gets stronger. It really does, and more alive.
Labyrinth pilgrim and Latham resident Connie Barber drove nearly an hour and a half to attend the opening and walk the maze.
It's always a wonderful experience. You start the journey going in. Just the outside world is with you, but as you get closer into the center, and then when you stay in the center, you let go, and then on the way out, you just take with you the peace and serenity that you gain, or whatever insight you might gain. And you come out and you're just so much more relaxed and calm.
Republican New York State Senator Dan Steck's 45th district includes a large portion of the Adirondack Park. An avid outdoorsman, Steck had a different takeaway from some of the other walkers.
Not everybody wants to hike in the Adirondacks. Not everyone wants to ski in the Adirondacks. But they'll travel with people that do. And yeah, they're looking for something else to do while they're here. And this is something else that people can do. And again, appropriate for ages 2 to 102.
Reporting from Johnsburg, this is Aaron Shallow-Levine for WAMC News.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, why the North Country is such a national bass fishing destination coming up. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note. A special vocal organ allows some birds to harmonize with themselves. That's just ahead at 8:42. But first, we've got to take a look at the weather. It's 66 degrees in Alex Bay. It's 65 in Queensbury and 62 in Ausable Forks. Partly cloudy skies in the forecast today with highs in the mid to lower 70s in the forecast for much of the region. Chance of showers overnight tonight with lows in the 50s. Tomorrow, a little bit cooler, probably cooling off from that rain with showers expected to continue during the day tomorrow. Highs in the upper 60s for much of the region, sort of capping out at 70 degrees. But things should be warming up by Wednesday and Thursday, hopefully to be able to get some swimming in. It should be near 80 by Thursday. Anglers from around the country are heading to the North Country this week for the Bassmaster Elite Series. The first tournament is on Lake Champlain this week and then in Clayton on the St. Lawrence River next week. The North Country is a destination for fishermen, especially bass fishermen. In fact, the July and August issue of Bassmaster magazine rates the St. Lawrence River as the number 2 best place for bass fishing in the country. Lake Champlain makes the top 100 list too, as do a couple of places just to the south, Oneida and Cayuga Lake, and Lake Erie, too. So what makes a fishery not just a good place, but a great place to fish? And why do so many places in our region make the grade? Mitch Tyke caught up with James Hall, editor-in-chief of Bassmaster magazine, to find out.
Well, I tell you, man, the St. Lawrence River, there's something special in the water there, and best I can figure. So y'all are sprinkling magic in that particular fishery, because it's been a perennial powerhouse as far as the rankings go. And this last year, it just illustrated as the best smallmouth fishery in the world, bar none. And there may not even be a second place as far as the St. Lawrence River and smallmouth go. The water there is fertile. The bass just keep getting bigger. You know, we had an event up there last year, our last event of the year, less than 12 months ago, where we had two anglers top the 100-pound mark over 4 days, which was actually, it had never been done before. There had never been an angler on the Elite Series catch over 100 pounds of smallmouth in one event, and then the St. Lawrence produced two of those in the same event. It was historic, and it appears that the St. Lawrence is just getting better.
Well, and so tell us about the data you use. I mean, you mentioned what it took to win the Elite Series last year in the St. Lawrence, but what's the sum total of the data you use to create this list, and how do you pull it all together over the year?
Yeah, it's painful. Like I mentioned, it's I have a love-hate relationship with this thing, because when we're putting together the 100 Best Bass Lakes list, the rankings, it takes about 2 months in total, almost 3, because what we do, first of all, is we survey all the fisheries departments of every state in the nation. Now, some of them participate, some of them don't, and they give us kind of the foundation to begin the process. So once they rank they do electrofish surveys. They're the ones that stock these fisheries. They're the ones that set the creel limits and the seasons for you guys up north. So having them kind of set the foundation of ranking their own lakes based on their knowledge of it is a really, really good foundation for us. But then we go in, once we kind of get their information, we go in and look at tournament data. Both like at every tournament trail you can imagine, and there are tens of thousands of them out there. We got like Paw Paw's Sunday morning derby on the Lake Mitchell. So we go through a ton of tournament data, and that does take a long time, and it will either help solidify and elevate the information that we get from the state fisheries departments, or it will say, well, this is not quite as good as they thought it was, just based on the data. So, and we also have, it's kind of our grassroots efforts throughout the U.S. called the Bass Nation. And these are fishermen who are in every state in the nation. They fish just about every pond out there. And there's just tens of thousands of these guys that are just avid and rabid. And each has a president and a conservation director. So we pull all these guys throughout the country as well, and have them rank the lakes that they fish in case there's something that might have slipped through the cracks. So when we kind of get it all down, we collect all that data, get our arms around it. We kind of put it down on paper, throw it in the spreadsheet, and we start looking at the average tournament weights it's taken to catch, and then the big fish, and then how close are the tournaments. Because if one derby is won with 30 pounds and the next 10 guys have 3 pounds, well then it kind of lets you know that was kind of a one-off. And so we try to avoid the one by ranking highly these one-offs, because every lake can show out every now and again. But we get a blue ribbon panel of industry insiders, some Elite Series anglers, some folks in the industry that have fished for forever, some people in my office. And then we just debate where these lakes are going to fall on the rankings. And then once that debate is over and hopefully no blood has been shed, then we settle on the list and publish it.
Now, Lake Champlain is also on this list, and there's an Elite Series event that's happened there the last couple of years and is coming up this year as well. What are the draws that you found, on the New York-Vermont border? Well, I will tell you something, and I was just up there this past spring, and it was tremendous, man. What is so amazing about Champlain is that you have an incredible smallmouth fishery alongside an incredible largemouth fishery. So you can kind of pick your poison when it comes to the style of fishing that you want. You're not only, throwing finesse baits in deep, clear water, but you can go fish for those big, the big green fish in shallow, weedy backwaters or coves or whatever. And you can power fish them. And then if you get tired of that, well, you pop out on the ledge and go catch, giant smallmouth too. And what I noticed about Champlain when I fished it this last time versus when I fished it prior was probably 10 years ago, is that the smallmouth have grown up. Used to you could go there and catch plenty of smallmouth, but they'd all be 2.5 pounds. I bet I caught 4 over 4.5 pounds this last time I went. So that really impressed me. The largemouth were still there, and they're still very healthy. So it's kind of for Champlain, to me, it's kind of a coin flip when it comes down to if you want to go win a tournament on that lake, you can probably do it with smallmouth, or you can go do it with largemouth if you get in the right spot. So that's a really special thing about that place, is that the quality
both types of bass are just so good.
I imagine it makes it that much more complicated for the Elite Series fishermen who have to come up with a strategy when they get there.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting, very interesting to watch, because you have your typical, some of these pros love fishing for smallmouth and are very, very good at it. Some of them are amazing at catching largemouth and not so much at smallmouth. So at Champlain, you're going to get to see guys fish to their strengths, my guess is. Or maybe both, because you maybe you can catch 2 4-pound largemouth and 3 4-pound small. I don't know. It's going to be cool to watch. But seeing these guys, the best fishermen on the planet, fish to their strengths in a place as amazing as Champlain is going to be fun to watch.
Well, and you talked about scenery, and it's tough to beat a place where you can see the Adirondacks on one side and the Green Mountains on the other and have this amazing lake in between.
Man, that place is so pretty, it ought to be illegal. I know at one point I just sat down and quit fishing and just stared at Champlain. And then of course you have the monster thing. And I swore I wasn't going to tell my Elite Series, and I won't tell his name, but we did go live scan some really deep areas, but just to make sure that the monster wasn't near. But the legend, the lore, the beauty of that place is the fishing. That one's just, man, it's hard. That needs to be on everybody's bucket list as far as I'm concerned.
That was James Hall, editor of Bassmaster Magazine, talking with Mitch Tyke ahead of the Bassmaster Elite Series coming to Lake Champlain this week and to Clayton next week.
Get a pole, we'll go down to the crawdad hole, honey, babe of mine. Well, hurry up, baby, slept too late, honey. Well, hurry up, baby, slept too late, babe. Well, hurry up, baby, slept too late. The crawdad man done passed your gate, honey, babe of mine. Well, won't you sell your crawdads 3 for a dime, honey? Well, won't you sell your crawdads 3 for a dime, babe? Well, won't you sell your crawdads 3 for a dime? 'Cause your crawdads ain't good as mine, honey, babe of mine. What you gonna do when the lake runs dry, honey? Well, what you gonna do when the lake runs dry, babe? Well, what you gonna do when the lake runs dry? I said all the big watch the crawdads die, honey, babe of mine. And I heard the duck say to the drake, honey. And I heard the duck say to the drake, babe. I heard the duck say to the drake, there ain't no crawdads in this lake, honey, babe of mine. There's a little bitty baby 9 days old, honey. There's a little bitty baby 9 days old, babe. There's a little bitty baby 9 days old. He stuck his finger in a crawdad hole, honey, babe of mine.
That's Crawdad Song by Keenan Stark and Orion Cribbs. This Adirondack-based bluegrass duo has performed in Canton and Queensbury, Cafe Lena in Saratoga Springs, and Tannery Pond in North Creek. And this week, they're headed to Racket Lake as part of the Great Camp Sagamore Summer Concert Series. It's Wednesday night, free and open to the public. Show starts at 7:15. That's it for the show. Morning Edition continues in just a couple of minutes. Till tomorrow, I'm Monica Sandreski. Be well.